afternoon, New Orleans, or wherever you are. I am Michelle Godin. This is Baldy and The Blonde. And the bald guy is not in the booth for the remaining 2 months. So, it's just me in the booth, but he's Mr. Remote Baldy. Hello, Tom.
I'm on the phone. I am in New Mexico for the next couple months.
For the summer. So we'll be doing this hopefully flawlessly, remotely. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, it's just been a really slow news week, huh, Tom? Almost had World War III, IV, whichever one. I don't know. They can't even decide if we're hovering on 3 or 4. World War. Not sure.
Well, we're working fast toward the next one, whatever number it might be.
Yeah.
But it's good news that calmer heads seem to have prevailed and things have calmed down for the time being.
Yes, and it's the Middle East, so maybe a lot of prayers are in order to hope that the ceasefire sticks. But, so far so good, and kudos to the powers that be for pulling it off, because there were a lot of moving parts and a lot of risk involved. And I'm still not convinced that we knew this whole thing was going to be started by the Israeli bombing. So I don't know that we really knew about that. You have an opinion on that, Thomas?
Well, I mean, obviously not through any reporting, because nobody knows anything, including in the media. But
and they wouldn't necessarily know if even if everything was perfect and on the up and up, we might not know that, right? We still don't know what happened to John F. Kennedy, so
Yeah, right. But where I was going with that is, so not based on any reporting, but just kind of reading between the lines and Trump's words, his inflection, how angry he appears, and we'll hear that one clip, how angry he appears to be, much more so at Israel than Iran.
Yes.
And you can totally hear that in his voice in this clip we're going to hear later on. I think that's an interesting notion that you mentioned, that it's possible that that Trump was caught unawares or had just very little notice when Israel first struck. Although, like you said, we'll probably never know that. We still don't know the truth about a lot of things going back many, many decades. So I wouldn't trust anything that is in the history books as this moves forward.
No, it's probably the best time to sort of figure out what's happening is now, before the cover-up starts in earnest, if there is one. And just the big question in my mind is, did Israel just go off and start the bombing without clearance from President Trump, who, after all, was in peace negotiations with Iran and had scheduled to continue them on the Sunday, but unfortunately the bombing started on Friday and the negotiators were killed. So I'm not sure that, that... Now, on the other hand, if it was something that we were aware of, we wouldn't announce it. So, hard to say.
Yeah, exactly. But again, when you hear Trump's words and his emotion behind those words, it sounds like he was really upset with Netanyahu.
Yes, it does.
Much more so than with Iran.
Well, I'm glad, because I'm tired of that guy. Basically, this is why I'm tired of him. He constantly, literally brags that he has now and always has controlled the USA. So that's not his exact words, but it's like, vote for me because I got the USA's number. And, of course, we know that there's a lot of lobbying for every congressman. According to Representative Massey, every U.S. congressman and senator has what he called an Israeli babysitter. And that was in an interview that Thomas Massey did with Tucker Carlson, the two persona non gratas right now, but he did say that months ago that he's the only one that he knows of that doesn't have a babysitter. So I don't know.
Yeah, and we could definitely stand to have more daylight between U.S. policy and Israeli policy.
Absolutely, and that's not to say they're not our ally in the Middle East, an important ally.
No, it doesn't mean that at all.
But we just
don't march in lockstep with anybody.
Exactly.
We shouldn't march in lockstep with anybody.
I hope not.
And, an America first means that. It doesn't mean America tied for first or co-America first. It means America first. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every country should put themselves first.
I think most of them do, actually. So.
Yeah, well, yes. They do. We don't, because we give our money to the rest of the world. We give our money to. I mean, if you look, and I don't really know the answer to this, but if you look at the list of countries that get what we call foreign aid, when it's really who knows what it.
Right.
It's just graft, keeping the right guys in power, or just money that comes funneled back here to the people who vote for the money to go there in the first place, whatever you want to call it. But it's not in our interest that the money's going offshore to other countries.
Well,
we don't get financial or foreign aid from anybody, do we?
I mean, look at what Doge uncovered. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we were using our own tax dollars to work against the U.S. taxpayer. It's crazy. And you know, I see that Marjorie Taylor Greene, once again, I think it might have passed, introduced. It's hard to believe a resolution to stop funding terrorist groups in the Middle East, which for some reason we do. I don't understand it, but like, is it Al Qaeda?
What a controversial bill that is.
Somehow, it's all these years, and we continue to fund. Is it Al Qaeda? I think it is, but I don't want to say for sure because I didn't get to double check that.
I'm sure it's more than just one.
Yes, but I'll look it up on the break. But yeah, so hopefully that passed. But who knows? And she's been, you know, again another person being severely criticized by the right in a way that the left usually does, because we usually allow dissent on our side. But this time it's been like, if you dare to question whether we were risking world war, you were considered to be a traitor by a large portion of Americans on
which is
X,
crazy,
for whatever that's worth.
Because the actions when Trump ordered that strike, was that on the that was last week Saturday, right?
Yeah.
So far that seems to have not led to an expansion of the war. In fact, we've had a ceasefire since. Maybe a tenuous one, but at least for now, it seems to be holding. But the reason people were concerned was not specifically because what might happen now. It's because of what we've seen in the past, going back decades. When we start these wars of aggression in the Middle East, some for regime change, some for other reasons, but they never go well for us. They've always ended in catastrophe. We don't win these wars. They've cost us trillions of dollars, thousands of lives. And so now when you speak up and say maybe we shouldn't be striking so fast, maybe we should be more prudent, and then when it doesn't entirely blow up in our face, some of the people on the right want to come after you and go like, nanny, boo-boo, see, you were wrong. It's like, dude, where have you been the last several decades?
Exactly.
There's a reason for the concern.
I mean, yeah, that's the problem is that, I mean, how many times were we told, you know, look at Bush flying in like a just a total jackass
all that kind of stuff.
with that outfit and landing on the deck of the carrier with the huge banner "Mission Accomplished."
Yeah, exactly. In other words, it's way too early to be celebrating and stuff it in people's faces, and you shouldn't stuff it in our faces anyway, because we've been right about the last, whatever it is, 7 or 8 wars that we've launched.
Right.
That they never end well for us. They do not benefit the American people.
No.
They never have. In fact, many have died.
I mean, if anything, you know, the Iran situation, for example, we've been told for many, many, many years that they were months or years away from the bomb, according to Bibi Netanyahu. Meanwhile, I mean, there's certainly a case to be made that North Korea is more dangerous to us, and I'm not in favor of bombing them. But if that's the goalpost, who's the most dangerous to us? Well, North Korea and China are far more dangerous than Iran to the United States, if that was what we were trying to do.
Right, except the point is they have nukes, and we don't dare go after a country that has nukes, which is the whole reason that Iran wants to get a nuke, assuming that they do.
Right.
And, I mean, and there's officially 8 countries in the world have nukes, unofficially 9, because Israel doesn't admit to having them.
But
it's the worst kept secret in the world. The world knows they have them, but they neither confirm nor deny that they have them. So they themselves have a so-called secret nuclear program, but they, of course, don't want Iran to. I don't want Iran to either.
No.
But, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, at the very least, it's hypocritical. I understand why nobody wants any other country to get a nuke, but from Iran's perspective, I can understand why they would.
Well,
because look what happens.
1 minute warning, Tom. Wrap it up. We got a 1 minute. Tom's not in the booth, so these warnings are going to be less than beautiful for the time being. So we're down to 46 seconds. When we come back, we're going to talk some more about the war, and I think President Trump has really done a good job of letting Israel know that they have to stay in their corner for a change, which I appreciate. And we'll go through some clips. We'll talk about the No Kings, and we'll talk about who we found out was possibly running the country. President Neera Tanden, a secretary, a staff member of Joe Biden, handling the Autopen duties for our country. Did you vote for her, Tom? I did not. Anyway,
I voted for her twice.
This is Baldy and the Blonde, at Baldy Blonde on X. We'll be right back after the break. BaldyandTheBlonde.com. Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde. This is Michelle Godam. We're here every Wednesday at 4 at WGSO. You can follow us at Baldy Blonde on X, at Baldy Blonde. No Baldy and the Blonde, just at Baldy Blonde. BaldyandTheBlonde.com, where we have all of our shows archived. And if you haven't looked at it yet, I really recommend you go look at our breakdown of the New Orleans terrorist attack. Not talking about that today, just suggestion. Might want to look, because there's a lot we don't know about that. Tom is in New Mexico. Tom?
I am. I am just north of Albuquerque.
Nice. So what's up? Where are we going?
Well, I wanted to go back to just talk about a little bit of the timeline. Right after the bombing on Saturday, when the U.S. struck Iran.
Yeah.
Just an interesting little timeline with some of Trump's Truth Social posts and some sound clips. And the day after the U.S. bombed Iran, he put out a Truth Social post that didn't say he was seeking regime change, but it kind of hinted at it, and that just seemed really. I mean, when things can get lost in translation, that just seems rather incautious. Yeah. You know what I mean? When World War III is at stake, because he did not say, "I want regime change," but he says if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? Well, dude, when things get translated, in other words, they know that it's very important that the goal should not be regime change, because Vance, Trump, and Netanyahu have all clearly stated, whether they even mean it or not, but they've all clearly stated within the last couple of days that regime change is not on the table. So it's obvious to them that it's important that message get out. Well, which means that Trump's comment was really pretty, I'm not saying dangerous, but it wasn't very careful.
Well, I was going to say that we're not used to a president who is different, in his negotiations. And from some of the other commentators I've listened to said that this is his way of letting them know, well, so far I haven't backed regime change. And you don't know what he's saying to them, Iran, on the phone. But, keep it up, fellas, and everything's on the table. So it's probably a negotiating tactic. I just don't think we get to know much about it. So far, so good. It's worked out. We'll see. But I sure didn't like teetering on the brink of what I thought was World War III. And, right now in America, if you are not on the left and you dare to question, you are considered to be, I don't know, a commie. Whatever.
Well, okay, so you can, I understand the theory that maybe it was a negotiating tool, but get this, the very next day, he said this is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East. So he acknowledged that we were right there. And when you throw regime change into the mix, again, he didn't call for it. In fact, I was expressly saying he's not calling for it. But he acknowledged that this is something that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East. That's his words.
Yep.
So I'm not buying that it's a strategy, and we seem to be okay now that we've got what looks to be a holding ceasefire. But the people on the right who are attacking others on the right for just asking for a little more caution. Those people are nuts. You have the president himself saying this could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East.
We've been sitting on a powder keg for a long time.
Yeah.
Look at Ukraine, Russia, Russia, and all of a sudden we had, when it was really looking crazy scary was when Russia and China said, well, don't worry, Iran. We'll give you nukes. Okay.
Well,
that'll go great.
Okay. So, there's always that chance if you go, because you never know when you light a fuse, or even if you get next to kerosene with a match, let alone light the fuse, you don't know where it's going to go if things ignite.
That's it.
And
That's
it's not like we can start something and then control it. And Trump, he obviously knows that, and that's why obviously he was hitting the phones hard.
Yeah, he was.
You can tell. But we should get to those sound clips.
Yeah, let's get to the clips.
Let's get to number 11. Michelle, you want to set that one up?
No, you go ahead. Oh, yeah,
okay,
this one, sure. Yeah, this is, I think this is definitely planned use of a curse word. Tom, is that thing bleeped out?
Don't worry, it's bleeped out.
Okay. So I think, I don't believe I've ever heard President Trump use the F word, and I think it was strategically chosen to send a message primarily to Israel that we are not happy with what you're doing. And, it was meant to surprise and even maybe shock people a little bit with its vehemence. And I thought it was good.
Tone.
So let's let it roll. Number 11.
Listen to the tone. Listen to the tone he uses about Netanyahu and Israel. Just listen.
Yeah.
Says that Iran violated the peace agreement, the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. When I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
Yep. So that was strategery, as George W. Bush would have said. Strategery. I think it was, and I think it was effective. I like it.
He barely even talked about Iran. He did.
He's mad at Israel, dropping a ton of bombs, the likes of which he's never seen. Because,
Right.
Yeah, so, and Tom, here's your warning. We are 1:11 from a break.
We have time for clip number 12.
Yeah, let's play clip 12, please, Kobe.
Can you clarify what you meant when you mentioned regime change in your Truth Social post the other night? Do you want to see regime change in Iran?
Oh, if there was, there was. But no, I don't want it. I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible. Regime change takes chaos. And ideally, we don't want to see so much chaos.
There you go.
So just clarifying, no, we're not seeking regime change. And again, whether that's true or not, we don't know. But he's publicly saying that we're not seeking regime change. And that just means that earlier post, the day after we bombed, he was just a little incautious. I wish he hadn't done that.
Well, or it was on purpose. I think we don't know. But I'll just tell you this, Tom, for the next segment, get your crown out and put it on, because we're going to be talking about Kings 2.0. Because we're going to be having another No Kings rally by the left on the 4th of July, and I'm going to be there. Just kidding. Y'all follow us at Baldy Blonde on X. We'll be right back after the break, baldyandtheblonde.com. Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin, and I'm wearing my crown along with Tom Coates. We are Baldy and the Blonde here every Wednesday at 4. Tom, are you wearing your crown?
Yeah, I promise I'm wearing my crown. This is radio. I can tell you anything I want.
Yes. Well, from what I understand, there's a gearing up for another No Kings March. Not sure exactly what it's all about, but No Kings 2.0. National protest July 4th, 2025. Independence without tyranny. That's what the flyer says. It's a really great flyer, too, don't you think?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this flyer, if I can have a couple of seconds about that.
Sure.
It's hilarious. Because when I first saw this, and there's a few flyers out there going around online. This is the first one I saw, and I have to admit, when I first clicked on it, it looks very impressive. It looks really well done. Looks like a lot of money went into it, and I was wondering, like, who is backing this? Because it's really impressive looking. And I myself have professionally, I've made a lot of flyers and brochures in my time, so I know what goes into these things. When I started looking at it a little closer, and it turns out it looks okay until you actually read it, and then it just becomes a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to pick on typographical errors. We all make them. It's just that in this one, there's a bunch of them, and they're just stupid.
Yeah.
And
it's pathetic.
It gives you
really.
an idea of who they be. They spell patriotism with an O in the patriot part. I mean, with an E instead of an O. They spell voice, VOS.
Well, yeah. Season.
THU.
Serve. SPRVE.
Yeah,
serve.
SPRVE.
It's just
right. Okay,
really.
But now I want to digress from this, because I know we're going to go on and talk about this No Kings 2.0. But before we do that, on the subject of Democrats who can't, or leftists who can't get anything right, even the simplest stuff, can we play that sound clip number? What is that? Can we go to number? Is it 41?
That's the House Oversight Committee. Yeah,
41.
let's do that.
This is hilarious. Right on the heels of those, all the stupid typos in that No Kings flyer. Here's a Democrat. This is Melanie Stansbury. This is yesterday in a hearing of the House Oversight Committee. So you're going to hear three voices. One is Brian Jack. He's a Republican from Georgia. Then you're going to hear Melanie Stansbury. She's get this. She's a Democrat from New Mexico, and she represents the district that I'm actually sitting in right now.
Well,
and then the last voice you're going to hear.
Gotta get out of there. Go ahead.
Because she's chairing the meeting. So this is hilarious. Kobe, let's hear clip 41.
Just a point of clarification. The poll behind you, behind our ranking member, it adds up to 110%. Just wanted to clarify, is it meant to add up to 110%, or is that an error?
This is from a Quinnipiac poll that was held 2 weeks ago, and this is the data that was provided. There's a wealth of information, including information about Donald Trump's falling poll numbers, so you should take a look. Thanks.
The gentleman yields, and it still adds up to 110%. That's a fake poll right there.
What a great comment at the end. It still adds up to 110%.
Wait,
That's a fake poll right there.
She couldn't even say Quinnipiac or something. I don't know.
No, yeah.
Tom, you better get out of that New Mexico hellhole you're in. That's all I got to say.
I just got here.
Yeah.
Actually, it's actually really, really nice, but politically not so nice.
Not so much. Of course, I'm in. I'm in a blue city myself, as you know. So there you go.
Oh yeah. So with that, in their poll, they have the poll was, how do you rate the work of Elon Musk and Doge? And they have 67% disapprove, 38 approve, 5% don't know, and that adds up to 110%. And when they point that out, she just gives some smarmy remarks saying, well, the poll also talks about Trump's declining numbers, so maybe you should take a look at it.
Which is also crazy because his poll numbers are through the roof. I mean,
well, yeah.
But I guess that was a couple of weeks ago. What's that?
Like she pointed out, it's a fake poll.
Yeah, it's,
The numbers, they add up to 110%. It's not a real poll. I mean, she's sitting there with a big smile on her face, sitting in front of this giant poster with numbers that add up to 110%. And even when it's pointed out to her, she still can't get it.
Gotta be snarky. And,
Yeah, she totally was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so more brilliance, I think, is, I guess we'll get to that in a minute.
All right. Let's get back to the No Kings, because they, besides all this typos, they have some other things. They raise some points. The reason for their gathering, and one is independence without tyranny, as if there's no tyranny in this country. When you look at the laws that have been weaponized, look at the January 6ers. Yeah. And I don't think we have time to go. You and I, we had a news story we wanted to talk about. We might have to save that one. But the point is, if these people think that they're going to get rid of tyranny by getting rid of Trump, we've been under a horrific tyranny in this country. Look at the COVID lockdowns for one.
I mean,
How is that not
please. And, the news media covering up that the president had dementia, even though it was very unsuccessful. They were just, it really wasn't even a cover up. They were just lying because we could see with our own eyes that the man couldn't speak, walk, or talk and think. So it was just propaganda. So that's part of the tyranny, is no freedom of the press.
Also, okay, so that on this flyer that they made up, they have truth and transparency, and that's exactly the Biden thing.
Right.
There was no truth. There was no transparency. Also, they're saying it's against authoritarianism. Well, we addressed that with the tyranny, but the Biden regime was the most authoritarian regime, and he even had when he gave his speech in Philadelphia, when he was looking like, it was right out of V for Vendetta, the way he was looking.
It was right out of Hitler. There's a particular speech, I can't remember which one it was, but where he's flanked by the red curtains, and just the whole thing was really creepy looking. And he had those two soldiers standing next to him, like we were. It was crazy looking. Yeah, V for Vendetta. Yeah,
and he was talking about the threat coming from the right, when obviously the threat comes from the leftists are very dangerous. There's example after example after example.
Look at the laptop that was hidden from us. So
where were all these no kings people then?
Yeah, nowhere to be found when the freedom of the press was under huge assault by the United States government, which we've talked about this endlessly, that they censored people talking about COVID, took away doctors' licenses for daring to question the no treatment protocol put out by the pharmaceutical industry. The tyranny off the charts, making people get an experimental shot or lose their job, closing down the entire economy over a cold, just flat out, you couldn't get more authoritarian. And, one thing after the other. And what are they? Where were they? They were compliant with their little masks, huddled in their houses, crying.
They were cheering.
No surfing, no fresh air. Oh, my God.
They loved that. The very people who, on this No Kings 2.0, who were now saying they're against authoritarianism and for justice and truth, transparency, they were cheering all of that censorship and all of the January 6th lockups. They loved that. They love authoritarianism.
So I would really like to go interview some of these people, and I might, except it's the 4th of July, and who wants to be with them? But what do you want? Right. What do you want? I don't understand it. What do you want?
A lot of it is that they have a problem with these deportations, but these deportations are just what all other presidents before Trump, going back 50, 60 years.
Well, yeah, we played the clips last week of every president. Yeah. We didn't even get to the Republicans because we ran out of time. Right. We played Obama, we played Bill Clinton, we played Hillary, we played Biden before dementia, every last one of them deporting and favoring deportations. And anyway, if you don't like it, change the law. I saw a lawyer who I know, and I'm not going to say his name, posting, "I stand with immigrants," the other day. Well, in what manner do you do so? What does that mean? You stand with legal immigrants or those who are here breaking the law? And are you, like federal judges have done, lawyers have been caught doing, are you willing to violate the law because you didn't get your way and you didn't get to keep the 20 million illegals that invaded the country at Biden's behest, and you stand with the immigrants against the law? Is that it?
Well,
it's just crazy times.
But if there's what, in your opinion, whoever you are, in this case, you're the judge, if there's
I don't know him. I just saw it. It's just that judge that was arrested.
Okay, if there's a law that you think is a bad law, then you should do what you can to get it changed. And bad laws should be resisted. It's true. But in the meantime, you got to be prepared to pay the price.
Well, yeah,
the price to pay for breaking the law.
Because 72% of Americans are in favor of deportation of everyone, not just the criminals. I mean, it's a really high number, and it way is higher than Trump's approval rating and includes Democrats. So this tiny minority that's in favor of, I don't know what, breaking the immigration laws continuing to do so, because they were certainly in favor of the invasion, which has led to many, many problems in the United States. And look at where it took New York, and I guess we'll be getting to that in our next segment. And Tom, this is your 51-second warning. So,
all right. Well, I just want to say I agree that all evidence shows that it is a small minority that favors this stuff. They're definitely on the losing side. However, if they sincerely think that these are bad laws, then they should try to change them and resist them.
That's right. That's how you do it.
But if you are on the side of breaking the law, then you have to accept that there's that price to pay.
That's it.
They've been getting off scot-free for so long, they're shocked that there's a pushback.
Well, when we come back, we will continue to talk about the tyranny of the left under the guise of no kings. And we're going to talk about an interesting story about some shark injustice, along with President Tandon and President Autopen. At Baldy Blonde on X. We'll be right back. Baldy and The Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin. We are here every Wednesday at 4. Tom Coates is the bald guy. Well, unless he's got a blonde wig on under his crown today. So, Tom, we were going to talk about a little bit about Miss Tandon, who has been revealed to be the senior staffer and secretary who was in charge of the Autopen. Would you like to explain what her testimony was in a nutshell regarding the use of the Autopen for President Dementia Joe Biden?
Yeah. She testified yesterday in front of the House Oversight Committee. Her name is Neera Tandon, and it was for 2 years. She was staff secretary and some kind of a senior advisor. So she wasn't there for his entire administration, but it looks like a couple of years of it.
I know, but that's interesting, too. She started in 2021 through 2023, which takes it back further than most people have even been thinking that this has been going on. Maybe some people were thinking, it was just towards the end when he was drooling and, peeing in his pants and whatever. So,
no, that's just when she was on his staff. She didn't say that what I read gives no indication when she was signing the Autopen. That's just when she was on the staff, was for that 2 years.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying exactly. That goes back from 21 to 23. It couldn't have been later than 23, right?
No, it didn't necessarily start as early as 21.
We don't know that. But somewhere in that time period. So for sure, I think everybody knows the Autopen was in overdrive in 2024. But somewhere between 21 and 23, this lady was there, and somewhere in there she was using the Autopen. And we'll maybe find out, because of course, as always, the testimony was behind closed doors. Why? Why?
Well, this was House Oversight Committee, and maybe that's routine for them. I don't know. I didn't have a chance to find that.
Yeah.
But here, I just wanted to give you a couple of quotes from a Fox News article.
Yep.
It says that this is quoting from the article, she was authorized to direct Autopen signatures, but was unaware of who in the president's inner circle was giving her the final clearance. And then, so in other words, she would send out these documents and wondering if she could use the Autopen, and it would come back unsigned, apparently, because she didn't know who was approving it.
Yeah.
But, now, here's another quote from the article. It says, Tandon testified that to get approval for use of the Autopen signatures, she would send decision memos to members of Biden's inner circle. However, she added that she was not aware of what actions or approvals took place between the time she sent the decision memo and this time she received it back with the necessary approval. So she sends it off. It's a document called the decision memo. She sends it off. She has no idea who's looking at it. She has no idea what processes they have, or even if anybody's even looking at it. For all she knows, they just come back and they just say, yeah, roll it.
Well, therefore, I mean, she's essentially issuing the presidential orders, okay? So then that brings us to this question. What is the effect? If they can't tie this directly to Biden, which of course they cannot, I don't care who perjures himself. This man did not know what he was doing, except for on the days that they gave him whatever they gave him to give him a moment of clarity. But even then, it wouldn't last. We saw the debate performance. So what's the effect? Well, how about the pardons, for example? You know.
Okay, well,
but anyway,
let me add this first.
That'll be another day. Go ahead.
There's currently 3 more witnesses who have volunteered to testify. I don't have those details in front of me now. I just remember seeing that there's 3 more within the next maybe month or so who have volunteered to come in and testify, former staffers. And then there's others who have been issued subpoenas.
Yeah.
So this, I believe, was the first one.
Yes, but the doctor, for example, his personal doctor, that little short fella, he has a subpoena, so he better show up, because hopefully we'll do the same to them that they did to Navarro and Bannon, which was unprecedented and threw him in jail for months. So we'll see.
But it's interesting
But we seem to do invitations and not subpoenas, and I don't see any perp walks or arrest. Just saying.
Well, hopefully someday soon. But it's interesting that 3 staffers have volunteered to testify.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll learn.
Well, they're probably worried, right?
Well, I imagine. But you asked, what are the effects of the Autopen?
Yep.
And I got to thinking that, as you well know, as a lawyer, if someone is on the stand and they have been found to have lied at any step of the way,
yep,
the judge directs the jury to what?
Disregard their testimony in whole or in part. It's up to you. But once the witness has lied, you can throw their testimony out the window. So maybe, something similar applies to this unprecedented ruling by committee.
Right,
I wonder if the Kings were concerned about that we had a president Autopen.
Yeah, right. Kings are real concerned about that.
That is a king.
Where I was going with that, there's not a direct connection between what we just said about a lying witness, in the Autopen.
Right.
But the principle should be the same, that if they don't know which Autopens were legit and which were not, then all of them should go.
Absolutely.
Everything should be void.
Couldn't agree with you more. We'll see. Well, it's uncharted waters, that's for sure. So anyway, I want to try to get to the congressional response to the investigation into the fact that the President of the United States was not running the country in accord with our will of the electorate. And Kobe, could you please play clip number 31? This is Wesley Bell telling us, we don't need to be looking into this.
To be spending our resources and taxpayer dollars, Republicans trying to dig up some kind of post-impeachment or whatever we're doing, it is an extraordinary waste of time, and the American people expect you deserve better.
I'm an American person. I expect to know exactly what has been going on in the White House with an old goat who couldn't even think straight and Autopen signing documents. So sorry, Representative Bell, who probably had all the time and money in the world for all kinds of unconstitutional endeavors. We demand to know. So.
Yeah, and he talks about, he says a post-impeachment.
What is he talking about?
I don't know, but he means okay, this is they're going after Biden retroactively, so what's the point? Yeah. And that's why he calls it an extraordinary waste of time. But at this point, it's obvious that this is not about Biden anymore. We all know that. It's about his so-called inner circle who covered for him, made decisions for him, authorized the use of the Autopen, and maybe committed illegal acts.
And arrested do-gooders who tried to rescue 19 sharks hooked up on a line, took extraordinary efforts, tried, to save the sharks, and ended up being accused of stealing federal property because of the line that the sharks were attached to. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a true story. Now, here's the thing, though.
All right, 1 minute and 30 seconds. Roll fast.
Well, but they did that in August of 2020 when Trump was president. But the prosecution came under Biden. It's true. These guys,
of course.
These divers in Florida, they rescued 19 sharks that had all been caught by this one long line. They thought it was illegal fishing, so they rescued the sharks and another fish that's protected as a species.
The Goliath grouper. Yep.
Yes, they rescued all this stuff, and then they called federal authorities saying, hey, look, we think we uncovered a crime here. Turns out it was a federal line, and those guys were arrested, charged, and convicted for stealing government property.
Well, fortunately, we have an American president now who doesn't need an Autopen, and he has pardoned these gentlemen. But that goes to show you the tyranny that we actually were living under, and that's just one guy. We've pointed out the many other cases of the abusive process committed by the Biden regime, and I am so happy that they are gone. And we have 29 seconds left, so let me take this opportunity to say, New York City's in big trouble. They just elected a communist Islamist, and good luck with that. He's going to have free groceries, he says. And New York already pays. Wait, 14 seconds. This is Baldy and the Blonde, and we will be back next week, Wednesday at 4. You can listen to all of our shows on baldyandtheblonde.com with no commercials, and you can follow us on X at Baldy Blonde. See you soon.